Welcome back to YouTube channel, where the unbelievable becomes reality and the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary. Today's story takes us deep into the folds of American history, numismatics, and an astonishing financial mystery that took years to unravel. At the heart of it all is a humble 2016 quarter, one that features John Brown's fort on its reverse, a design born out of the America the Beautiful Quarters program. But what if I told you that one very specific coin from that mintage, a single quarter, came to be worth a mind-blowing $212 million? This isn't just a story about metal, mint marks, or monetary value. This is a journey through obsession, hidden messages, and an accidental discovery that rewrote coin collecting history forever. It all began innocently enough in the spring of 2017, in the small town of Elkins, West Virginia. A retired high school history teacher named Calvin Renshaw had been sorting through a jar of change he had saved up over the years. He wasn't a collector by trade or even by passion. He simply kept coins because he appreciated the art on them, the glimpses of heritage, and the stories that each coin could hint at. He never imagined one of those stories would consume the next 6 years of his life and the lives of many others. As he sifted through the metallic pile that clinked and sparkled in the morning sunlight on his kitchen table, a particular quarter caught his eye. At first, it looked like any other 2016 quarter from the Harpers Ferry National Historical Park series, part of the celebrated America the Beautiful initiative. It featured John Brown's fort, a powerful symbol of the fight against slavery, etched beautifully on its reverse. But there was something unusual. The fort's image seemed just slightly off. Not in a flawed, poorly struck kind of way, but in an intentional, artistic deviation. It was as if the shadows cast by the bricks had depth, a kind of three-dimensional illusion that wasn't present in the other quarters he owned. Intrigued, Calvin compared it with other 2016 John Brown's fort quarters and noticed minute differences, tiny variations in the windows, a faint engraving that looked like an etching inside the doorway. Curious, he did what any modern amateur researcher would do. He took a picture and uploaded it to a popular coin enthusiast forum. Within hours, the post exploded. Numismatists from across the country chimed in. At first, many brushed it off as a trick of lighting or a post-mint alteration. But a few experts were less dismissive. One collector, a semi-retired archivist named Lyle Travers from Milwaukee, immediately noticed something even more peculiar. When the image was inverted and zoomed in at 500%, the brick patterns inside the fort appeared to form alphanumeric characters, what looked like coordinates. Within 48 hours, the coin community had taken the image through every possible analysis tool available to hobbyists, and the consensus grew: this was not a standard mint product. The coordinates, once decoded, pointed to a spot near the Appalachian Trail, not far from Harpers Ferry itself. It was a remote, forested location, seemingly unremarkable. But curiosity knows no boundaries. Calvin, Lyle, and 2 other forum members made the trip. What they found buried 3 feet beneath a stone outcropping was the first clue that they were dealing with something that transcended numismatics. Encased in a weatherproof titanium container was a leather-bound journal, a 19th-century relic whose first page bore the signature of none other than Absalom P. Washburn, a name unknown to most, but within Civil War intelligence circles, a ghostly enigma rumored to be a double agent for the Union. The journal contained intricate sketches, ciphered messages, and what appeared to be a list of coin denominations with corresponding years and mint marks. The 2016 quarter was listed, next to it, a phrase, "Legacy Trigger." No one could quite understand what it meant, but it set off a chain of investigations that would send shockwaves through the worlds of history, finance, and government. Weeks later, a historian at the Smithsonian Institution contacted Calvin. She had seen the forum posts and had reason to believe there was more to the journal than amateur sleuthing could uncover. The pages were sent for forensic analysis. The inks dated back to the 1860s. The sketches of coins, upon comparison, matched several anomalous specimens that had been quietly archived in museums around the world, coins long thought to be artists' renditions or errors not meant for circulation. But this 2016 quarter was real, and in someone's possession. It had been minted, circulated, and mysteriously modified with impossible precision. Enter the Federal Reserve. Within 2 months of the journal's discovery, Calvin was visited by a team of financial forensic experts operating under a joint directive of the U.S. Mint and the Department of Treasury. They had reason to believe the quarter in Calvin's possession was part of a covert currency test, a classified project known only by its codename Project Penance, initiated under an obscure directive signed in 1998. The goal? To test anti-counterfeit micro-engraving technology with embedded geomarkers and microdata, technology decades ahead of its time. But it had been scrapped. Or so they thought. Only one prototype quarter had ever been made using those specifications, and it had vanished during transportation from the Denver Mint to a secure federal facility. No one could account for how it ended up in general circulation. But here it was, in Calvin's jar of coins. As legal debates brewed behind closed doors and investigations ramped up, the quarter was placed in secure federal custody. Yet, Calvin was allowed to remain involved in the unfolding mystery, provided he signed a lengthy non-disclosure agreement, one he ultimately chose to violate for the sake of history. A rogue journalist from London named Eleanor Digby caught wind of the story. She tracked down Calvin, pieced together the timeline, and published an exposé under the headline, "The $212 million quarter the U.S. government doesn't want you to know about." The article went viral. Demand for the image of the quarter skyrocketed. Suddenly, every 2016 John Brown's Ford quarter was being scrutinized under microscopes, magnifying glasses, and blacklight scanners. Thousands of collectors, speculators, and even conspiracy theorists joined the hunt, hoping to find another coin from the lost Project Penance. But none emerged. In a closed-door auction hosted by a high-security financial consortium based in Zurich, the U.S. government was pressured to allow an independent valuation of the coin. After weeks of analysis, including consultations with quantum engravers, AI encryption analysts, and micromapping specialists, the coin was declared unique in the world. Its combination of historical implication, mysterious origin, encrypted features, and the scandalous secrecy around its creation made it the most valuable modern coin in existence. The final bid? $212 million. Purchased not by a private collector, but by a coalition of academic institutions, global museums, and one anonymous philanthropist. Their intent: to make the coin accessible to the world, to study it, to understand the secrets embedded within its metallic layers. Yet even after its purchase, mysteries continued to unfold. Scanning electron microscopy revealed a microscopic map inside the coin's inner clad layer, an impossibility by any standard fabrication process known today. The map appeared to show an alternate layout of Harpers Ferry as it might have existed in 1859, complete with hidden tunnels, marked stash locations, and routes that corresponded with Confederate intelligence maps long thought to be myth. As historians and cryptographers puzzled over the data, one fact became clear: this coin was not simply a monetary artifact, it was a time capsule, a layered message passed through centuries, crafted by minds operating in secret, for a purpose not yet fully understood. And so, the story of the 2016 John Brown's Ford quarter dollar continues. What started as spare change on a kitchen table became the catalyst for one of the most profound discoveries in American historical lore. Calvin Renshaw faded into quiet retirement once more, declining all interviews after the story broke, content that he had served history one final time. But the Journal of Absalom P. Washburn remains only partially decoded. The project, once abandoned by the U.S. Mint, now sparks whispers of revival in scientific corridors. And out there, somewhere, are still those who believe that perhaps more coins from Project Penance exist, waiting in pockets, jars, or forgotten drawers, holding secrets no less earth-shaking than the first. Last today, where the ordinary turns into the extraordinary and stories buried in the past find new life through the most unexpected discoveries. Today's story is one that begins not in a museum, nor a coin auction, nor the vault of a wealthy collector, but in a weathered fishing boat bobbing on the waters of Narragansett Bay. In the summer of 2022, a 72-year-old fisherman named Thomas Reed cast his nets just like he had done every morning for the past 50 years. What he pulled up on that warm August day wasn't a legendary catch from the sea, but a piece of metal that would turn the world of numismatics, and history itself, upside down. Among the seaweed, tangled rope, and small silver fish was a coin glinting unusually bright in the sun. Thomas picked it up and brushed away the grime. At first, he thought it was a regular quarter. The obverse featured George Washington, as expected, and the reverse carried the design of a sailboat gliding beneath the Claiborne-Pell-Newport Bridge with the year 2001 engraved along the bottom. Above it, in sharp and stylized lettering, the words Rhode Island 1790. He had seen this coin many times before. But something felt different. The texture was smoother. The weight felt oddly dense in his palm. And there was an unexpected shimmer in the color, not quite silver, not quite platinum, but something else entirely. He slipped it into his shirt pocket and continued fishing. But the image of the coin lingered in his mind. That evening, back home in his modest cottage in Bristol, Rhode Island, Thomas pulled the coin out again and looked at it under the light. That's when he noticed something that had escaped his attention earlier. Within the pattern of the waves under the sailboat, there were tiny ridges, too symmetrical to be natural. He fetched an old jeweler's loop that he used for tying fishing knots in low light and peered closely at the design. What he saw made his heart skip a beat. Etched within the waves, almost invisibly, was an inscription. A series of microscopic letters, so perfectly embedded they could not have been added postmint. They read, R.I. Charter Vault, 1723. The words meant nothing to him at the time, but the realization that the coin had an engraving not seen on any other Rhode Island quarter he'd handled sparked something in his gut. The next day, he brought it to a local coin dealer who, after examining the piece with more sophisticated tools, immediately knew this was no ordinary quarter. Word traveled quickly. Within days, the coin was on its way to a private numismatic research lab in Massachusetts. What followed was an avalanche of discoveries, mysteries, and historical revelations that would make this seemingly ordinary 2001 Rhode Island quarter worth a staggering $212 million. And as its origins unraveled, it became clear that this was no minting error or collectible oddity. This was a key one that unlocked a part of American history long believed to be myth. The inscription R.I. Charter Vault 1723 referenced a rumored hidden chamber beneath the original statehouse in Newport. According to centuries-old whispers, before Rhode Island became the last of the 13 colonies to ratify the U.S. Constitution, a secret vault had been built to protect pre-revolutionary documents, royal charters, and personal correspondences of the founding figures who had sought independence from British rule long before it was fashionable. Most historians dismissed it as legend. There were no blueprints, no official records, and no archaeological evidence. But this coin was about to change that. The researchers at the lab conducted metallurgical tests and discovered something mind-boggling. The composition of the coin was not standard copper-nickel clad. Instead, it contained traces of iridium and osmium, two of the rarest metals on Earth, both nearly impossible to incorporate into coinage due to their density and melting points. More shocking was the structure of the coin itself. Within its core was a wafer-thin layer containing crystalline nanostructures unlike anything produced by the U.S. Mint. This suggested two things. The coin was either counterfeit created with technology far beyond current capabilities, or it was intentionally designed by an unknown party with a purpose no one had yet understood. The U.S. Mint was brought into the loop and confirmed that while Rhode Island quarters were indeed minted in 2001 at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, none were struck using any exotic metals or micro-engraving technology. This coin, according to all official records, should not exist. But it did. And somehow, it had ended up in the Atlantic, embedded in a fishing net, resting for decades, perhaps even since the day it was struck. In the ocean depths, speculation spiraled. Theories bloomed. Some believed it was a one-off prototype created under a secret government initiative and lost at sea. Others thought it had been planted deliberately to preserve a forgotten truth. But the real revelation came when a team of cryptographers, art historians, and archivists collaborated to interpret the coin's microengraving. They discovered that the inscription was not just a clue to a location, but part of a cipher, one embedded across multiple artifacts rumored to be created by members of the Gaspé Affair resistance network through connections buried deep in colonial archives. They unearthed records of a little-known silversmith named Elias Burnham who was active in Providence during the early 1700s. Burnham's work was known for its precision, secret etchings, and involvement in crafting ceremonial artifacts for Rhode Island's early governance. He vanished mysteriously in 1723, the same year referenced on the coin. Digging into his last known correspondence, researchers found reference to a vault key made eternal, bearing the sails of defiance. The phrase mirrored the sailboat image on the coin. That's when everything clicked. The coin was not minted by accident, nor was it planted recently. It had been designed using ancient secrets and modern technology, as a hybrid artifact bridging centuries of history, encoded to point to something buried, something hidden, something priceless. The Rhode Island Charter Vault, once dismissed as folklore, was very real. And thanks to the coin, it was finally located. Beneath the foundation of the old colony house, a hidden passageway sealed behind an iron door was uncovered during a controlled excavation. Inside were volumes of pre-revolution writings, journals from resistance members, and the original 1663 royal charter from King Charles II, thought lost in the fires of the 19th century. There were also gold bars, maritime records from the colonial navy, and a series of sealed scrolls that bore the signatures of early American thinkers whose identities are still being confirmed to this day. In the wake of this discovery, the coin's historical value skyrocketed. Museums fought over ownership rights. The U.S. government tried to reclaim it, citing national security and cultural preservation laws. But Thomas Reed had never sold it. He had loaned it to researchers, shared it with historians, but refused to part with it. He said the coin belonged to the sea, to the people, to the legacy of Rhode Island. Ultimately, a coalition of museums and preservation groups pooled their resources and paid $212 million, not for ownership, but for perpetual custodianship. The coin would remain in Rhode Island, protected, studied, and exhibited for the world to see, and so the tale of the 2001 Rhode Island 1790 quarter dollar became one of the most remarkable stories ever told in the world of coins. A tiny piece of metal, worth just 25 cents on paper, turned into a portal through time, a key to hidden truths, and a reminder that even the smallest things can carry the weight of history.